Thank you, everybody, for coming to the KDH Newsroom. Today we have a guest, Bear Albrech. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
The new president of the Killeen Economic Development Corporation and the Greater Killeen Chamber. So welcome.
Thank you, sir.
To Killeen, welcome to the Herald. If you want to just start, if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your background and experience and how you got to work.
Well, let me first by saying thank you for inviting me over. I appreciate it. I've always had a great partnership with our local media in the past, working in economic development and with a lot of military communities. But I've got 30 years experience working in economic development programs, leading them as CEO or president, primarily in military communities, like at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. We had major Department of Energy facilities there in Amarillo. We had a lot, and of course Amarillo had a big presence in the defense industry. But every one of those roles as CEO, our primary goal was to diversify the economy. We knew as military communities that it was important to bring in the new type of jobs that we wouldn't be so dependent on the federal spending of the military. We knew that we had a great workforce generator called that military installation. And we were able to leverage that workforce generators, working with the partnership of our educational system, to bring in new types of jobs and quality jobs that helps diversify, but also provides a career path for our young kids. Before I worked in economic development, I worked at Hughes Aircraft Company. Remember the old Howard Hughes company? It's which is now Raytheon. But I worked there as an engineer and business development executive. Prior to that, I was actually stationed right here at West Fort Hood, and I flew with the Mohawks, if you know what those are, the surveillance aircraft. All that surveillance aircraft now has been replaced by drones. So, which is kind of discouraging because I still remember a major telling me one time, "Oh, you can't do this job with these UAVs." Well, yeah, they can. So I don't know where he is today, but I'd like to run into him.
So you were in the Army then?
Yes, I'm three-generation Army aviation. My father served 20-something years. I have two uncles. My dad served 3 tours in Vietnam. My uncles served in helicopter pilots in Vietnam as well. Grandfather was in, I don't even think they called it Army aviation. I think they called it the Air Corps back then. So, yeah, I grew up in the military, lived all over the country, overseas in Europe and in Asia. So,
when were you stationed here?
I'm predicting around 87-ish, around in there. But Killeen was a totally different community back
Small
then.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the change that's happened over the past 30 years. And but we still have a lot to work. We still have a lot to do. At the end of 90 days, I've only been here 2 weeks. But hopefully by the end of 90 days, I'll have a list of target markets, target industries that we're going to go after. We're going to have a slight change in strategy to get a little bit more aggressive, engage all the community entities in economic development. We're going to work together well. We're going to increase our cooperative spirit, because I promise you, a community that maintains a cooperative spirit is a successful community. I've seen it the other way. I've seen a toxic city and it hurts the economic development mission. It doesn't do anybody any good. So the spirit of cooperation is the secret of success for our region. Our cities have to work together. Our entities like the economic development, like the Chamber of Commerce, our educational institutions. I mean, we've got a really cool opportunity with both the Texas A&M, Central Texas, and Central Texas College. So economic development is education, and you can't have success in one without the other. So we're going to develop a really keen strategic partnership where we're going to look at industry and what the university and the college can partner with to create the kind of jobs we want. It's important that you got me going, so
Go ahead.
I'll have you baptized by the end of the day. But the type of jobs that we need to focus on is the quality jobs that provide a career path for our young people. The kind of jobs that our kids will no longer have to go to Dallas or to Houston to get work. We want to be able to provide a career path for those young people that can graduate from the community college, can graduate from Texas A&M, and go right to work right here locally so that they can be close to their family. Now, we also want good quality jobs that impact the community positively. We want to be careful not to bring in dirty industry that's going to be high water use, unnecessary, employment.
Can you give examples of what those are?
Sure, like tomato canning. Tomato canning is a high water use industry, lots of water. Another example is like a data center. Large, and we were just talking about this. Texas is still struggling, not struggling, they're redesigning their grid, their power grid, to make it more reliable. Remember a few years ago Texas got the word, man, they're all over it. They're working with all the providers. So we know that data centers use an extraordinary amount of power, a lot. I don't think we need to jeopardize our present residents and our citizens' power capabilities for a data center that employs 20 people. Data centers are big buildings, lots of high tech, great taxpayers. Don't get me wrong. A data center, the property tax on data centers does have a return, but is it worth it? I don't think so. I think we have a moral responsibility to go after the type of industry that our citizens want.
Just talking about more sustainable.
Yeah.
You mentioned drones being kind of the future and even the present of surveillance and military applications. Do you think that there seems to be a push with Congress and the executive to kind of bring that back from China to increase domestic drone production? Do you
Yes.
think that could be a good industry?
Fort Hood will have a UAV presence. They are integrating unmanned aerial vehicles into the battalions or the brigade level, and there's numerous technologies that follow that, from telemetry type companies, autopilot type companies, and then the next phase of the type of technology that will be integrated into the missions here at Fort Clawsons would be the counter UAS. What are the systems that will take out a bad guy's UAV or drone? How do we capture that drone? How do we enable that drone without it falling into a crowd? Because remember, there's the defense UAVs or defense drones, but there's an amazing growing market on the civilian side. Drones that do public service like monitor traffic. There's agricultural drones. There's firefighting drones that does surveillance and firefighting. A great example was the fires last year in California, where multiple drone companies out of the valley volunteered in their systems to to go in and monitor and help the firefighters isolate hot spots and etc. And it was a great example of how that kind of technology can work for public service. Then, of course, we're hearing a little bit about the logistics UAVs of delivering packages. I think we're not there yet. Our biggest hurdle is, FAA trying to figure out how do we do this safely? How do we do this with less noise? Because not everybody's going to like a drone flying around in their neighborhood. It's just the way it is. So, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of our target markets will be in the defense side. And keep in mind, this year, Texas was rated #1 in receiving defense dollars with over $70 billion. Texas is now #1 in the defense business. Now, that's for 2023. But you have to keep in mind that figure also includes, Bell Helicopter, headquartered in Fort Worth. They won a big contract to replace all the Black Hawk helicopters. That also includes the F-35 contract with Lockheed Martin. Another one of the most expensive defense contracts ever. But my point is that we have the opportunity to leverage that technology, our capabilities as Texas, to go after the type of jobs that will not only could be in the defense industry, but also non-defense industries. For example, pharmaceuticals. Years ago, one of the biggest contracts that came out of the Department of Defense was because of COVID. It was pharmaceuticals. So, but there's also information technology, cybersecurity. We have a huge opportunity in cybersecurity. And our young people are really embracing the cybersecurity concept because it's fun. It's not just hacking into someone's database. And with AI, some of the just amazing things that we need to do in cybersecurity. Because every time we take an advancement in data, we have to protect it. So anyway, and that's one of the biggest shortages in workforce with the Department of Defense is qualified cybersecurity personnel. It's really tough to keep an Air Force captain that's got 7 years experience with the certifications in cybersecurity in the military when Edward Jones wants to offer him $300,000.
It's not really what captain thinks.
Well, yeah. So just let me reassure you, the board is really embraces this ethical growth philosophy. They want to see the jobs come in, and
The Killeen EDC.
yes, the Killeen EDC board. So, all right, questions? Did I talk too much?
No, that's great. Do you have specific jobs you can list that you think would be a good addition to? Like a couple of examples?
Sure. That's got about 5 tiers to an answer. Okay. But let me give you an example of a company that we brought to Oklahoma, outside Fort Sill. Fort Sill is one of the largest military installations in Oklahoma, and it's home to the Fires Center. It's Air Defense School. It's the one thing that we realized is that there was a lot of military spouses that weren't registered as unemployed. But they were there. That they just weren't going to work because they didn't have to. So, but what we discovered is they would be interested in going to work for a $17, $18, $19 an hour job. So we targeted a company that does have defense contracts, but also federal contracts that had nothing to do with defense. And this company won a contract in Affordable Care Act. When you call the Affordable Care Act, you called this company. We were able to put 500 jobs in Lawton, Oklahoma with that company, and over 40% were military spouses. And it was amazing because suddenly we saw those families have an additional income that made a difference between buying a used car and buying a new car, potentially buying or renting an apartment. Instead, they were buying a house or a small house. So there's an example of very targeted job creation. Now, the jobs were $17 to $22 an hour to start. You know how many people showed up for the job fair? Over 3,000 people showed up for that job fair. And we are similar as a regional center. I don't look at the city limits. I was doing site selection before I was helping companies find locations. When companies are looking at areas, they could care less where our city limits are. They don't look at that. They don't see county lines. But what they do look at is how far out does someone drive here for a job paying X? What does the educational system look like? How many people graduate from our high school and our junior college? They want to see that workforce being generated. And our biggest generator is right next door to us, our partner, Fort Cavazos. More and more of these defense companies are looking at communities that have, and you could actually see this on RFPs, requests for proposals from these companies. They want to see a community that has an agricultural background. They want to see a university within an hour drive. And they want to see a military installation within an hour drive. You know what they're looking for really? They're looking for the talent, the soft skills that we used to teach, that somehow our generation kind of skipped a beat. They're teaching those work ethics. They want that person to believe in, the military. They're not union. They don't have to put their pencil down at 4:30. They're there for the mission. Same way with agriculture. I'm from a ranching family myself. I know that when it's time to feed, it doesn't matter if it's 4 o'clock in the morning or not. You're going to get out and feed. So, how's that?
Oh, that's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is there a push from the EDC to still like every day, every month, there's hundreds, maybe a couple thousand soldiers that get out of here. The ETS get out, and a lot of times they go back home. But I know at one time there was an effort to try to retain them here because they're highly skilled, and they need a job. Is there still a push to try to retain soldiers who are getting out of the Army? Does it live and work in this area?
I haven't heard of that program yet, but I've only been here 2 weeks. But I would be very interested in seeing that, because in every location, every community, we try to do that. Sometimes we give it to the local, the responsibility to the technical college to give them the option. This is why if you stay here and go to school, we can train you for a discount or an incentive. Sometimes it was led by the Chamber of Commerce, which the Chamber of Commerce has members that want to do business, and many times they will say, hey, by living here in Killeen, you've got the retail, you've got the hospitals, you've got all these opportunities that where you can call home, and you and your family can live right here. But I'll be looking for opportunities in that, especially in that area. You're right. That ETS, that soldier getting out of the military, is a huge resource opportunity for us.
One of the problems that the chambers had in the past, and the city as a whole, and when it comes to employment, there's a big, a disconnect between putting people to work and giving them skills to work. And so a lot of times we get stuff like all these call centers. The first thing we got in the 80s and 90s around here was call centers.
Right.
It's easy to get people in there. They don't need a lot of training. If they're stuck, committed to a military person, like they move, okay, no big deal. Train somebody else. You don't have to worry about long-term engagement. That's it. And they can work for $10, $11 an hour, and they're okay with it. You can always work for the rest of the money. The problem is, it's a low-skill position. It doesn't require a lot in advancement opportunities, and then it's not like a pyramid scheme. There's all these people at the bottom making the calls, and you get some management, and then you get the top people. Well, the chamber recently has gone the other route, and they've brought in things like this Donjan Semitech, or Semitech, or whatever it is. It's this chemical that requires extremely advanced education, extremely specified skills, and they pay very well, but they only pay about 20 people. So what people are looking for around here, I think, is what you were talking about, people that can have a career path where they can actually use the skills they learned in school, maybe have some advanced training through the colleges or some training centers that locate here, and then have something to fall back on when they stay in the area. They don't have to worry about leaving for Dallas or Houston or something like that to get a well-paying job. They could career, not just a job. So I think that's a good focus you've got there about as far as integrating some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because, one, the call center industry has declined almost, it's almost gone. But there are some companies that do provide that a call center, if you want to call them that, they're inbound, that provide a little above minimum wage. What we have to look at as economic developers, if it's a $14 an hour job, how many people do we have that need a $14 an hour job? They're going from minimum wage to 14 to move on to 17. In our case, we do have a market of workforce that needs a stepping stone. I don't think we need to throw big incentives at that kind of thing, but we do need to help fill that step so that they have that path. So we're not going to ignore, we're going to focus in on what the community needs and our economy needs, not going out. It's like Tucson, Arizona became a huge call center town. They made a huge mistake, kept bringing in more call centers. The problem was they were hurting the companies that they originally helped because the call center across the street would take their people for a nickel an hour more, and they just went bouncing around the community. So yeah, we're going to take all that, all those influences in mind. And then 2, education. I believe because of Fort Cavazos, and because of our existing capabilities with the university, with Central Texas College, with our K-12, and this is a little bit of a big vision, and this is me speaking. I haven't got the endorsement from anybody else, but I see us developing programs to ensure that Central Texas becomes STEM center in Texas. We want to develop and promote and go after funding for STEM programs, not just out of the Texas taxpayers, but also at the federal level. We also want to go after private sector dollars to support STEM. Did you know in Huntsville, Alabama, they built a cyber high school with private sector funding, a big portion of their cyber security high school. That's pretty cool. They realized the importance of STEM, and companies like Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and a lot of those defense companies, they're great community partners, but they're shifting their expenditures of donations of money to workforce programs. They realize they are the beneficiary of that investment. So we have some great companies right here in Texas that would love to see Texas as becoming the leading STEM education state in the country. And I hope our Central Texas region is the center point of that STEM brand.
In STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math.
Right, science, technology.
Jobs that involve those fields.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because when you think about it, everything is involved in technology. That camera right there has got some amazing advanced technologies. Our phones, what was somebody said here last year that our phones' computer power is more power than what the astronauts used to go to the moon. So,
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Bear?
I don't know if I missed it or not in the beginning. Which part specifically do you work with when it comes to the city?
the Economic Development Corporation is a private non-for-profit agency that provides economic development services to the city. And this is one thing we as an organization need to do. We want to do a better job of getting information out to our taxpayers, our citizens, of why communities do economic development. And because what we do successfully will bring in new capital investment in the community that pays taxes. And by paying taxes, when we buy more homes, when we contribute to the city tax base that's going to be able to provide more services to us as citizens. So it's like a business. We do economic development. We make that investment, so not just to create jobs, but also increase the standard of living in our community. And many of the citizens I've talked to, they want a higher standard of living here in Killeen. And even people in Belton, when I talked to the citizens over there, they said, we want to bring this up. We want jobs for our kids. So it's not just isolated within our city limits. We need to move forward thinking regionally. We need to work with Harker Heights. We're going to work with the Temple. We're going to work with even Lampasas. We're going to work with Austin. I know, a little bit of a reach, but
Thank you.
sure. Anything else?
So you got me thinking when we talked about getting out of the military process. I remember back last year they were looking for a place to put a VA clinic, multidisciplinary clinic. Are y'all still? Is that in the works still?
Like I said, I'm still new. It's been discussed. I've been hearing it around the board. I haven't been briefed on that in depth yet. We will be looking at it. I'm not sure if we are providing a support role, but I'm sure we are involved in some form or fashion.
And to be clear, there already is a VA clinic in Killeen, but this would be a bigger one, like 70,000 square feet is what they're talking, which is like.
And it would be run by the
it's
VA.
very sizable, yeah.
Yeah, so that one's a.
I had to look over at my captain in command here because a lot of times, do you know why there's secrecy around working with companies?
Well, I know there's real estate involved. You're trying to make a deal.
Yeah.
You're trying to get them here where they also might be thinking about going elsewhere. So
Right.
you're trying to persuade people to set up a business here. They might come to Killeen. They might go to Austin or elsewhere. So you don't want to publicly say everything that you're willing to
Right.
do.
And I will tell you that we're talking about millions of dollars of investment, and they're looking at property, like what you said. But there's also other factors, like with the private sector, you've got stockholders. You can't let the stockholders, get them off balance. There's the banking institutions. There's the insurance companies. there's all these people that they need to coordinate with, and that's why as a site selector, and some of my counterparts that were site selectors, we would never call a government entity. You can't, because they can't guarantee my email not being printed and being picked up by a city council member's spouse that's doing real estate. And of course, she's going to call the company and say, "Hey, I want to sell you a house." It's totally harmless. It isn't meant, but it jeopardizes all the work that went in behind that. So that's why a lot of times you'll hear economic development people say, "I just can't say."
A question about the structure.
Sure.
It's a very unusual structure. You're probably aware for the chamber and the EDC with the low taxpayer funding, and it makes it easy for us to do open records requests, but it also makes it a little bit difficult for the EDC to do its business, in the privacy factor. And the way it's set up now is this is different than it was 5 years ago. It used to be the EDC and the chamber each got a separate allocation from the city. And it was about even, about $750 apiece. At one point they decided, okay, we're going to trim that back and we're going to give it all to EDC. How's the chamber getting funded? Well, it's supposed to be getting funded through dues and through memberships. But the other thing is the EDC gives the chamber work to do. They contract with them to do some work.
Whatever it works.
That's how they get it. So anyway, as you move forward, I know you've only been here a couple of weeks. Do you envision any kind of changes to the way the structure is set up? And obviously, I don't know if that has to go to city council.
It's already it's already being looked at very hard. The chamber does not receive money directly from the city, but the EDC, the private non-for-profit that clearly has a mission in town, will leverage the existing staff over at the marketing. I mean, where the EDC alone can't afford someone that's an expert in marketing, we could reach out to an expert over at the chamber to help us with that, and we pay her a fee or a percentage of our revenue. It's actually quite cost effective doing it like that instead of trying to hire a full-time marketing person. So it does have its advantages. It is confusing, but it is, because I had to sit there and listen to it about 3 times. EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, has an agreement with the city to receive taxpayers. The chamber doesn't. So, and it's an ongoing confusion point for many people. But that's going to be one of the topics the board wants to help the public understand better, because we haven't told that story better. So
they have totally different missions. I mean, the EDC's job is to bring new businesses in, recruit, try to sell the city, get businesses and get the economy booming. And the chamber's basic job is to work with existing members and encourage them and get them to grow, and build through that. So they cross a little bit, but not entirely. So.
Well, here's what we were talking about just this morning. In economic development programs, you have an initiative called Business Retention and Expansion. And that's where we meet with existing companies that are here, existing retailers, existing brokers, real estate brokers, industry, defense contract, where we sit down and ask them questions so we can help them potentially solve any problems that's keeping them from expansion or potentially keeping them here. So here's what we were talking about. The cool thing about the EDC and the chamber being, brothers, is that I could reach out to the chamber membership and say, give me which company is having problems, and they have the connection to help me go and meet with that company and help what their challenges are. So there is a kind of a cool connection there that I'm fully going to take advantage of those kind of connections. But let me real quick tell you what's important about business retention and expansion. When I was in Amarillo, we met with a pharmaceutical company. They were homegrown. They are anyway. They had about 200 people. The owner. We went over there with the mayor, with the city manager. We wanted to have this business retention meeting. We went through a series of questions when the owner said, "We just got bought by a venture capital firm out of Dallas. They have a pharmaceutical company there in Dallas." He was afraid they're going to move those 200 jobs down to Dallas. We took that information, put together a presentation and an incentive package, and instead of the jobs going to Dallas, the 250 jobs in Dallas went to Amarillo. That was not only a job saver, but a job development. So we actually got, and those were really good paying jobs.
Kevin,
Yeah, I was wondering about if there's going to be like a different approach or maybe like some like adjustments to like trying to attract like a grocery store to North Killeen. I know that there's been a lot of like talk and effort made about that in the past, and it's impossible for
years.
Yeah, so like so I was just wondering if there's going to be a different approach to that, or like, because I know that they have to people have said that they have to attract more people to live in that area first before anything can be done, but you know
It's well, that's retail, and traditionally, economic development, we support new retail, but we don't go attract it. In some cases like this, we want to be able to collect the type of data that would tell us, do we justify that grocery store? Can we justify a Trader Joe's or and different companies have different parameters. And retail is all about rooftops. It's nothing we can do. I mean, if there's not people buying the homes, but can we keep an eye on it and see what we can do and monitor it and see if we can't find strategies to encourage it? We don't want to incentivize it because it has to be market supported. You know, if there's not enough people there, you don't want to build a grocery store and have it close in a year. That would be bad. So I think we can encourage the type of capital investment to come to Killeen that will help the growth, that would help support the retail sector.
yeah.
Okay, I think we're about out of time. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll be asking you questions in the future.
Cool, thanks.